LASAD. LASAD is an argument diagramming tool. Students use it to represent arguments in the form of node and link diagrams. LASAD enables students to learn and practice argumentation skills individually and collaboratively. It can provide dynamic, system-generated feedback to support students. Here we see an argument diagram in LASAD. The boxes in the diagram represent different types of statements, such as claims and evidence. The graphical links represent different types of relations between statements, such as support and oppose relations. The specific types of boxes and links can be configured in LASAD to support modeling different types of arguments in different domains, such as scientific and legal arguments. The text of box and link types used within a diagram is referred to as the ontology of the diagram. Feedback in LASAD. One of the main features of LASAD is that it can support students while they are creating argument diagrams. The system can automatically analyze argument diagrams based on predefined rules, identify possible errors in the diagram, and provide helpful feedback to students. The upper part of the figure shows a correctly modeled argument structure. The lower part of the figure shows a typical modeling error which LASAD can detect. The correct argument structure is comprised of a piece of evidence that supports a claim, represented in LASAD through an evidence box, a claim box, and a support link that points from the evidence box to the claim box. However, as shown in the lower part of the figure, students might use the support link in the opposite direction, which would mean that the claim supports the evidence, indicating a typical modeling error. LASAD can identify such patterns in the diagram and provide corresponding feedback. Students can request feedback through the feedback menu. Red stars in the diagram indicate relevant patterns that the system has detected. When hovering the mouse pointer over a red star, the system visually highlights the pattern in the diagram and displays a short feedback message. When clicking on a red star, a long feedback message with a more detailed explanation will be displayed in a separate message. The LASAD feedback system allows administrators to define when and how feedback is provided to students. They can define feedback agents in terms of relevant patterns, feedback messages, and overall strategies of how to provide feedback. The LASAD feedback authoring tool provides a graphical user interface to facilitate the process of defining and administering feedback agents. This tutorial explains how to use the feedback authoring tool. The Feedback Authoring Tool Overview. This is the Feedback Agent Administration screen, which gives access to basic functions. In the following, I will explain in more detail the 3 steps required to enable feedback in a session. 1. Adding a new feedback agent and defining its behavior, including relevant patterns, feedback messages, and overall strategy. 2. Assigning the feedback agent to the sessions and ontologies that it should support. And 3. Starting support for these sessions to activate all feedback agents assigned to these sessions. Adding and defining feedback agents. To add a new feedback agent, we click on the Add Agent button in the Agent Administration screen. A window is opened in which we are prompted to specify a name for the agent and the ontology we would like the agent to support. In our example, we name the agent Basic Argue Agent and select the ontology Argue and click on the OK button. The agent will be added to the list of agents in the panel in the upper left. To define the feedback agent's behavior, we click on the Edit Agent icon of an existing agent. The Edit Agent screen is opened. The Edit Agent screen has 3 different tabs which correspond to the basic components of a feedback agent: patterns, messages, and strategies. We start with patterns. Defining patterns. Patterns are the objects or conditions LASAD can detect in an argument diagram. There are 2 kinds of patterns in LASAD: structure patterns and count patterns. We start with the definition of a structure pattern. Defining structure patterns. Structure patterns are predefined structures in the diagram, for instance, a claim box that supports an evidence box. To add a new pattern, we click on the Add Pattern button. A window is opened in which we can enter the pattern's name and type. As an example, we add a new pattern with the name claim without text, type structure pattern, and click the OK button. The new pattern appears in the list of patterns and is displayed in the lower panel. To edit or view a pattern, we go to the Patterns Defined list and select it. This action displays the pattern details in the lower panel. To define the structure of the pattern, we go to the Definitions subtab, which displays a still empty diagramming area. The diagramming area is used to define the structure of the pattern, similar to how diagrams are created in LASAD. To create a new box, we right-click in the workspace and select the type of box. To create a new link, we click at one of the 4 round knobs on the sides of the source box and drag a line to the target box. The Create New Link dialog will be displayed. There are 6 different types of boxes and links available to express patterns. 1. An existing box. 2. The non-existence of a box. 3. An existing link in the specified direction. 4. The non-existence of a link in the specified direction. 5. An existing link in either direction. Or 6. The non-existence of a link in either direction. Pattern elements are always interpreted in the context of their neighboring elements. The figure shows an example. The pattern consists of 1. An evidence box that is connected to 2. A no evidence box through 3. A no directed link of type oppose. In Figure A and Figure B, the evidence box number 1 will be matched by this pattern, since in both cases it is not connected through an oppose link to another evidence box. In case A, there isn't any link connected to the evidence box number 1. In case B, there is a support link, but no oppose link that points from evidence box number 1 to another evidence box. In case C, evidence box number 1 will not be matched, since it has an oppose link pointing to another evidence box. Coming back to our pattern example, claim without text. To define that A, the box is of type claim, and B does not contain any text, we must specify corresponding constraints. To do so, we click on the Configuration button in the title bar of the box, represented by a cogwheel icon. The Element Constraint Definition window is opened. In this window, we can define the constraints for the different properties of boxes and links. By default, the property type is always available in the list of properties to be constrained. Other properties can be added as required by clicking on the Add Property button. Certain properties of the box or link can always be added. In particular, the properties creator, modifiers, creation time, and last modification time. The availability of other properties is contingent on the type property. To add a constraint, we click on the plus icon in the row of corresponding property to bring up the Add Constraint window. To define a constraint, we must specify a logical comparison to some reference value. For instance, the value of our property is equal or greater than some reference value. First, we choose from 4 different types of reference values. 1. Constant value, a comparison with a fixed value. For example, the type of our box is equal to claim, or the box has an acceptability score greater than 5. 2. Variable value, a comparison with a value of another property. For example, our box has the same type as box 2. 3. Constant set, a comparison with a fixed set of values. For example, the creator of our box is either Tom, John, or Mark, or a box has either type claim or evidence. 4. Variable set, a comparison with another property that represents a set of values. For example, the creator of our box has also modified box 2. Depending on the data types of the property and the reference value, number, string, or set, different comparison operators are available. For the claim without text example, we define two constraints. First, we specify that the box is of type claim. Since claim boxes have a component named text, we can add the property text to the list of properties to be constrained. After that, we add a constraint that the value of the property text must be equal to an empty string. To display or unfold the constraints for a property, we double-click on the property. The Filter subtab provides expert settings that are usually not required. It allows defining constraints regarding the pattern age, whether the pattern is older or younger than X seconds, and users, in order to associate the pattern with specific users who contributed to the pattern in a specific way. We won't define user or time-related filters for our pattern. Defining count patterns. Count patterns are conditions on the number of elements in the diagram, for instance, more than 3 boxes without text. To define a count pattern that identifies users who created 3 or more claims without text, the following steps are needed. 1. We click on Add Pattern. A window opens. 2. We enter the pattern name, 3 claims without text, and select Count Pattern. The new pattern is added to the list of patterns. 3. We select the pattern from the list and go to the Definition subtab. 4. We want to count claims without text, a pattern we already defined, and so we select patterns from what is counted. 5. We check only specific types and click on the Add Specific Types button, the cogwheel. We move Claim Without Text to the Selected Types list and click OK. We define the count condition, in this case, greater than or equal to 3. 7. We would like to require that all 3 instances have been created by the same user. We go to the Filter subtab and check the option, Yes, count instances owned by user. The pattern will be marked as a user-specific pattern. Corresponding messages can only be provided to the individual user and cannot be broadcast to the entire group. After we have defined the patterns, we are interested in associating each pattern with a feedback message that can be delivered to the students in response to the pattern. Defining messages. Messages are generated and sent to students in response to detected patterns. The textual feedback or hints are given and the detected pattern is highlighted in the diagram. To define a message for the 3 claims without text pattern, 1. We click on Add Message, enter a name, for instance, 3 claims without text, then click OK. The new message is added to the message defined list and is displayed in the lower panel. 2. In the Trigger By dropdown, we select 3 claims without text. This links the message to the selected pattern. Now we go to the Content subtab. The message seen by the user is comprised of 3 parts. A short message that is displayed in the feedback panel and is also when hovering the mouse pointer over a red star. A long message that is more detailed explanation displayed in a separate message window when clicking on a red star. Highlighting that visually highlights the pattern in the diagram when hovering the mouse pointer over a red star. For the current example, the short message will be 3 claims without text, and the long message will be, you have created 3 or more claim boxes without entering text. The highlighting will be enabled. Finally, we must define under which conditions the feedback messages will be presented to individual students or the group of students as a whole. To do so, we define feedback strategies. Defining strategies. LASAD can pursue different strategies regarding when to send messages, for example, send messages automatically or only when the user explicitly requests help from the feedback menu. To whom messages are sent, for example, send group messages to all students collaborating on a diagram, or send personal messages to only individual students, and which messages are provided. Since multiple messages might be possible at a time, LASAD must choose the most important or appropriate message. There are two kinds of strategies in LASAD: individual support strategies and group support strategies. We start with the definition of individual support strategies. Defining individual support strategies. Individual support strategies focus on each individual student, meaning that when a user X requests feedback, LASAD specifically looks for patterns associated with this user X and sends a corresponding message exclusively to user X. We now define an individual support strategy that provides the previous defined message, 3 claims without text, on request when the user selects Get Hint from the feedback menu. 1. We click on Add Strategy, enter On Request Hint as a name, select Individual Select Strategy, and click OK. The new strategy is added to the Strategies Defined list and is displayed in the lower panel. 2. The Provision Time option allows us to specify when the feedback messages will be provided. On Request allows the student to request feedback by selecting a corresponding option from the feedback menu. Periodically provides feedback messages automatically in predefined intervals. We select On Request and enter the name Get Hint. 3. We click on the Messages subtab and move the 3 claims without text to Selected Messages Types list. 4. In the Sort and Filter subtab, we can specify the number of messages provided at one time and define sort and filter criteria, which we won't discuss in detail here. The definition of our feedback agent is now complete. We click on the Save Configuration to save the changes. Defining group support strategies. Group support strategies provide support on the group level irrespective of specific students. Messages are broadcast to the entire group of students. Group support strategies can be defined similarly to individual support strategies. The main difference is that user-specific messages cannot be used as a part of a group support strategy. Assigning the agent to sessions and starting support for sessions. Once the agent is created and is free of errors, it can be used to support LASAD sessions. This is done in the Feedback Agent Administration screen. First, we indicate that the definition of the feedback agent is complete by clicking the Mark It as Ready button. If the action was successful, the button will be grayed out. The agent can now be assigned to ontologies and/or sessions using the Add Agent button in the corresponding row in the Ontology or Session panel. In this case, we assign our agent to the session Learning Argumentation Map 2. Agents assigned to a session or ontology are not activated until support for the corresponding sessions has been explicitly started. To start support for a session, we click the Play button of the respective session in the panel on the right. If support for a session was already enabled before we added an agent, we must first stop support for that session, the Stop button, and then restart support for that session, Play button, to launch the most recent configuration for that session.